Hi everyone, my name is Alexa Betrago and I am studying nursing as my major. Today I'm going to talk about someone that really paved the way for nurses all over the world a very long time ago, but she still has a very big impact on nurses today. Could you imagine laying in a bed for 11 years? Is it even possible? I'm here to let you know that it is. And this was actually done by someone named Florence Nightingale. She is the world's most well-known nurse, and we're going to talk about the bed rest situation later. I've always heard of the name Florence Nightingale in relation to nursing. I just never knew exactly what she did to change the face of it. In the early 1800s, Florence Nightingale changed the face of nursing and set a standard for nurses to come. In my speech today, I'm going to provide some background into Florence Nightingale and the pivotal moment in which she became a prime example of ingenuity, strength, and an expert in the care of patients. Today, we're going to begin with a little bit of information in relation to Florence Nightingale and how she became a nurse. She was born in Italy in 1820. She was born in Florence, Italy, which is why her name is Florence. Her family heritage was predominantly British, and she would become very well traveled, and she was a very intelligent woman. Nightingale's studies began as a young girl, and they carried on into her adulthood. She was never really satisfied with the traditional female skills of home management, and she preferred to read about great philosophers and engage in serious political and social discourses with her father. Despite hesitance from her family, Nightingale enrolled into the institution of Protestant Deaconess at Kaiserwerth in Germany. And there she learned basic nursing skills and hospital organization. So basically, Florence Nightingale was born into a very wealthy family, and instead of choosing to marry wealthy and keep a beautiful home and the whole social season, she decided to become a nurse and care for patients. With her bright mind and her drive for others, Florence Nightingale was really given the tools to be a successful nurse. And the next story is really pivotal in why she changed the face of nursing. So Nightingale was able to reform a war hospital from death and despair to order and healing. So at the request of Sidney Herbert, which was the Secretary of War at the time, he reached out to Nightingale to assist in the war hospital in the middle of the Crimean War. This was in Constantinople in the later 1800s. She was around 30 at this time. Nightingale and her nurses were able to save a ton of lives. So basically, Nightingale assembled a crew of 34 nurses, and the conditions of the hospital were absolutely atrocious. There were no clean linens. The beds were disgusting. There were no female nurses. There were only a few doctors, and they didn't really know what they were doing anyways. And not only was the death rate extremely high, most of the soldiers were dying because of the infections brought on by the uncleanliness of the barracks and the hospital itself. So Florence Nightingale, with her tools that she learned in nursing school and after becoming a superintendent and a leader of many nurses, she was able to have the nurses and herself get the hospital back to order and clean because of her no-nonsense attitude. Basically, the linens were cleaned every day. Constant supervision over each patient was taken. Soldiers had supervision and wound care almost immediately after the battle or whatever incident caused them to be there. And the death rate dropped to 2% 2 weeks after Nightingale and her troop of nurses arrived. So it's crazy to think that a little bit of strict order and some clean sheets what they'll do for a person. While Nightingale was able to keep her patients safe at the Crimean War Hospital, safe and disease-free, she wasn't able to stop herself from getting sick. She ended up getting the Crimean fever, which basically entailed a chronic illness that plagued her for the rest of her life. So she was diligent. She was called the Lady with the Lamp. Basically, every single night after the nurses went to sleep, she would go to each and every soldier and make sure they were safe. This kind of ties back into the 11 years of bed rest. She really spent 11 years in bed. This is because she was so sick from the Crimean fever. It would make her really weak, and she was never the same after that. In conclusion, I hope you liked and enjoyed what I had presented today in my informative speech. You learned a little bit more than what you expected, and understand how much of a great asset a nurse can be all over the world. While my major is nursing and yours may not, I want to suggest that you take a closer look in admiring the skill set that a nurse has to offer. Nurses are special, and I'm really looking forward to being one. Anywho, I hope you learned something new about Florence Nightingale, and thank you very much for listening.